Hey, welcome once again to Western New York Backyard Enclosures podcast Level Up. This is episode number 2. We thank you so much for joining us. And hey, we want to give a special shout out and thanks to all those that watched our previous episode, our very first episode last week. Gave us some good insights and some good feedback of what we should do. And as well as gave us a few good questions that we're going to address and get to here today. So, again, thank you so much for joining us. Sit back, relax, enjoy. Hopefully, we answer your question. And again, if you have questions even after this episode, then leave them right here in the comments below, and we'll make sure we'll get to them to you as soon as we can. So sit back, relax, and enjoy because podcast number 2 is coming up. Well, once again, thanks for joining us here at Western New York Backyard Enclosures podcast Level Up. I got my cup of coffee, my Mickey Mouse mug, and we're getting ready to start. I hope you all having a great week thus far. I know some of you got blasted pretty good with a snowstorm again. Mother Nature hasn't been very cooperative this year, at least in this season, to get a lot of work done. But today we're battling some frigid cold temperatures and some snow. So hopefully we'll be getting back at it here very soon. Anyhow, as we mentioned out earlier before that, we got some great questions that came through last week during last week's podcast. So we're going to address a couple of those today. The first one we're going to address today is the question about does my building need to be placed in a concrete pier or can it be placed on the ground? Really good question. Thanks, Mindy, out in Orchard Park, for sending us that question, and we're going to address that here right now. So to better understand how our buildings are built, we mentioned a little bit last time that our buildings have two options to be anchored to. They can be anchored onto existing concrete pads or patios that you already have poured in your backyard or on your patio already. Others can be placed on the ground, whether it be on a pier or on the ground itself. How do they get anchored if it's on the ground itself? That was another question that we had received. To answer that question is that we use what we call a post ground spike. A post ground spike is basically anchored into the ground, being impacted into the ground by drilling it or sledgehammering it into the ground. It kind of looks like a long pin, as you see here. That the post will then go and fit inside of that bracket, and then that will be set on the ground. It is an option to use if it's solid ground, if it doesn't get wet in that area a lot, and there is the ground is stable enough to hold the size of building. I don't recommend using these for large buildings. Maybe something as big as a 12 by 12 would be the largest I would feel comfortable of using these. Other than that, they're just not really made to keep the building from sinking into the ground due to its weight and weight load that it'll take from the snow. The other option is that by putting concrete piers in the ground. What is a concrete pier, you may ask? Well, a concrete pier can be basically described as a hole in the ground that's filled with a large paper roll that kind of looks very resemblance of a paper towel roll. And then that's placed in the ground and then filled with concrete. That concrete then hardens, and then we place our brackets on top of the concrete and then build our structure off of that foundation. How big does a pier have to be? That depends upon the town. According to New York State Universal Code, it does say that a pier must be at least the minimum of double the size of the post that you're using. Now, since we use all 6x6 posts, that would go to say that the minimum size requirement for our sonotube concrete pier would be 12 inches. So double the size of the post, 6 inches, would have to be a 12-inch pier. Now, some towns in New York State do require the different sizes to be depending upon their town municipality code. For example, one of the local towns around here suggested that we recently build one of our projects to be 18-inch instead of 12 inches. Um, that 18-inch pier is based upon what the town's requirements are at that time. Uh, this one here had an 18-inch borehole in diameter, and the depth of these are at minimum 42 inches to get below the frost line. Here in New York State, our frost line is 42 inches in most dominant areas, so therefore we need to make sure that we get past that. Once the hole was dug, as you can see here in the photo and videos, that once that hole is dug, we then go and put the paper towel roll, or as what we call the sonotube, inside the hole, and then begin filling it with concrete. After giving about a day or two for that concrete to harden, we then come back and begin placing our 6x6 post bases, anchoring them on top of the concrete. Now, these get anchored on top of the concrete simply because we no longer insert the wood into concrete. And the reasoning for that is because over time, that wood left untreated in the concrete has a tendency of dry rotting, and the holes that are created around the post itself, a gap will open up, allowing water to drip down into the concrete, resting inside of the wood, which eventually will cause the wood to rot. It does not give the lifespan that it normally would if you place the post on top of the concrete pad, therefore rotting out the wood and probably getting a lifespan of less than 10 years. And I say less, it could be significantly less depending upon how much water your building does get. So that is why we place our posts and post bases on top of the concrete, elevated above the actual grade line of your area of your ground. Usually, in most cases, we try to keep it above 3 inches above the normal grade line for the soil conditions, but that will depend upon the location of your structure. If your structure is susceptible to a lot of water, then yes, we try to raise it above the ground a few inches to keep water from going onto the post at all. Or in some cases, we try to keep it below or at grade if you're going to be backfilling the area and it's not prone to a lot of wetness back there. So with the 6x6 posts, they are anchored on top, as you see here in the diagram. It is anchored on top, and they are secured using sleeve anchors. Now those sleeve anchors get actually drilled into the concrete, and depending upon the bracket that you decide to choose, we have two styles of brackets that we use. One is a black powder coated post base. Those are nice if you're looking to go for the more rustic look, and if you're thinking about keeping the wood exposed. The next option that we have is a galvanized post base, and that has a different style of anchoring system to it. Still using the sleeve anchors, but using only one instead of where the other one uses four. The advantages and disadvantages over a black powder base compared to a galvanized base is simply that if you plan on in the future ever wrapping your post, for example, if you plan on putting stone veneer around the outside of the post, or if you plan on putting a vinyl sleeve over top of the post, the black powder coat bases do not work for those type of situations. They are decorative in themselves and thus used as such. If you're planning on using your post base to wrap it in stone veneer or a vinyl post, then it is recommended that you use the galvanized sleeve or excuse me post base. So then that way you can slide that sleeve over or wrap the stone around it without having any issue. So that pretty much covers the idea as far as post bases are concerned and our piers. Another question that we got as far as the base, or excuse me, as the posts themselves. Why do we use 6x6s instead of 4x4s? That's a very easy answer. The 6x6 posts give us a heavier duty stand, obviously, than a 4x4 post. Because we use 6x6s, our span between 6x6 and 6x6 is greater than if we were to use 4x4s. For example, we can span a 6x6 using a 2x10 at 11 foot 6 inches. So from one post A to post B, it can be 11 foot 6 inches across the top. So what we do is that we use the 6x6 post in order to be able to give us a heavier duty building, to make it look more aesthetically pleasing, and to give it more of that timber frame look. So those are two of our questions that we've helped to answer today. Again, keep the questions coming. We look forward to answering them. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, by also leave so here in the comment section, or by all means, give us a call. We've got our phone number posted here on our Facebook page and also on the YouTube page. Give us a call. We'd be happy to talk with you. Take care, everybody. We're getting close to celebrating Christmas. If we don't see you between now and then, have a Merry Christmas, everybody, and a Happy New Year. And until then, stay safe, everybody, and make sure you be good to one another. Take care.